Just a piece. A small piece. But it was all I needed. Should the inevitable occur, and if I know my Morrigan, it already has. I am but a fragment cast adrift from the whole, a bit of flotsam to cling to in the storm.
What is effective immortality? Effective immortality is the ability to live forever with both mind and body. Using its effectiveness would require a chain of command, or multiple vessels to complete this task. In Thedas, it's a rare phenomenon for one to learn this ability in its adequate sense, and it depends on the specimen's aptitude on how it will affect their longevity of life and potentially becoming undefeatable. This practice was a god's drooling savvy. To imagine a powerful mage acquiring this power would lead anyone to bow down at their knees and believe. Hello Thedosians, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are delving into the mysterious effective immortality definition and who practiced this skill. Mythal.
Flemeth extends her life by possessing the bodies of her daughters. That was the fate she intended for me.
As far as we know, Mythal has two ways of effective immortality. Firstly, through Flemeth, Mythal has extended her life by birthing many daughters and possessing their bodies when they come of age, each sharing the same blood connection. Secondly, Mythal splits her being into multiple aspects of herself, ensuring she can survive at any threat thrown at her throughout the ages. So let's break that down with more context.
The new Mythal and Morrigan's mother, as well as a witch who prolongs her unnatural life by possessing the bodies of her daughters.
When Morgan received Flemeth's grimoire, it stated that she prolonged her life by possessing the bodies of her daughters. Morgan was against this and plotted to kill her before Flemeth would possess her body. However, in Dragon Age 2, whether the hero of Ferelden killed Flemeth or not, she remained alive. She placed a small piece of herself into an amulet carried by Hawk, who then traveled to Kirkwall. According to Dragon Age Silent Grove, Yavanna believed that Flemeth's possession was a gift, and that Morgan was being foolish to not understand that. What Yavanna was trying to prove was that Morgan has many misconceptions about Flemeth that have been proven to be completely false. Mythal is not a demon. Instead, she is a powerful elven goddess, and to bestow this power is a gift. Something that Morgan has been looking for ever since she's left the Kokari wilds.
And you follow her whims. Do you even know what she truly is?
You seek to preserve the powers that were, but to what end? It is because I taught you, girl. Because things happened that were never meant to happen.
While Morgan rejects Flemeth's purpose for her, Flemeth's previous daughters have proven to be willing to inherit Mythal's power. So this gift is not possession. One has to be willing in order to receive Mythal's power.
A soul is not forced upon the unwilling, Morrigan. You were never in danger from me.
And even though we saw one Flemeth doing something with Fen'Harel, we've also seen that Flemeth can stow away a piece of herself and smuggle it safely as a backup plan, just in case if someone else fails to fulfill her plan of destruction, hence her effective use of mortality itself. And until her mission has been fulfilled, however sinister that may be, Mythal is making sure that she has many variations of her essence to come out alive at the end of it all, whatever the cost.
You met Mythal, did you not? The first of my people do not die so easily.
Corypheus.
I did not foresee a Tevinter Magister having learned the secret of effective immortality.
Solas said he was surprised that Corypheus had learned the secret of effective immortality, which suggests that what Corypheus achieved was different from natural immortality as given by the ancient elves. At least, that's what I took from Solas's seemingly deliberate use of the word effective. From what we know, Corypheus uses the blight that allowed his tainted blood to take over a body of a warden and recreate his original form. This has been prevalent from the end of Dragon Age 2 Legacy and throughout Inquisitions with the actions that took place at the Conclave and the Temple of Mythal. All of these events concluded that Corypheus is immortal. However, some fans believe that Corypheus's red lyrium dragon was the reason for his use of effective immortality. This is incorrect. Mark Taras stated that the dragon isn't the source of the body jumping. It represents a weakness in the ability. Killing it temporarily disrupts ability. So this means that the source of his effective immortality comes from the Blight's connection to living sources like lyrium and tainted blood like the Wardens. Much of what is similar to the Archdemon's effective immortality process as well. Naturally, archdemons are effectively immortal in the sense that if the tainted old god is killed by someone without the taint, then it would move on to another soulless darkspawn, recreating its terrible form and starting the Blight's cycle once again. However, its effectiveness ends when a Grey Warden strikes the killing blow. The soul will assail to that Warden's taint, causing both souls to be destroyed, thus ending the Blight. So it concludes that there isn't truly an answer as to why these two powerful blighted creatures attain the use of effective immortality. It's just assumed that the blight makes it much easier to attain that feat. Ancient Elven.
The legends of elven immortality. Did they use magic to increase their lifespan?
No. It was simply part of being elven.
It is said that the ancient elves pre-Veil were immortal in the sense that they didn't age, yet they could still be killed by injury, sickness, or because of someone's power. And up until that point, a natural death for elves would be considered them going into a deep sleep due to their deterioration of the spirit. So in a sense, elves had immortal vessels. Even when their bodies were useless, they could still kick it somewhere else as a spirit ineffective. When the veil was put up, it cut their ties to the land, so elves in Othenera would lose their connection to their body and stay a spirit in the Fade and died in their normal sense. In the presumption before the veil, the ancient Elven developed an ability to jump over bodies and be immune to any type of natural death when doing so. This made them create an effectiveness to their immortality and perhaps causing a threat to the elven race who do not know the use of this process. I believe the ancient Elven developed a body jumping ritual as a backup plan, but such a ritual was limited to nobles and the Pantheon. You can even theorize that the Valicene is also another way for an Evaneris to body jump onto their slaves if everything else fails, thus their direct translation to blood writing, and why there was a prevalent rebellion by Fen'Harel. So if this was a divine ritual reserved for the nobles and the gods, the question leads to how did Mythal die if this practice was in use? But I'm guessing we all know this answer. She truly didn't die. Blood connection. Blood is the first clue as to why effective immortality works. Corypheus and the past archdemons have a shared blood connection through the taint, which enables them to body jump from one blighted creature to another. This is dangerous because anyone blighted could perform this feat if it's taught by one of their intelligence groups like we have seen in Awakening. The same goes for Flemeth. Her shared blood connection is using her offspring to body jump through the ages in case of death since her tale began. As for the ancient Elven, we can go as far as to say that the Pantheon used their effective immortality through their shared blood too. But the question is, who do they share their blood with? I mentioned that Vallaslin could be the reason as to why the Pantheon couldn't be killed because their blood writing would allow them to body swap to one of their slaves, thus making them effectively immortal. In Dragon Age Blue Wraith, they revealed how Fenris received his markings from a lyrium-imbued sarcophagus that Magister Denarius recovered. In Dragon Age 2, Meryl commented on how Fenris's markings are like Vallaslin.
Why are you watching me like that?
You have Vallaslin, the same markings that the Dalish have.
Yours are not made of lyrium.
No, they're made of blood. Our blood. That's what Vallaslin means. Blood writing. It's a mark of adulthood.
Mine were carved into my flesh against my will, in a ritual I remember only for the agony it caused me.
I'm so sorry.
And Descent revealed that Isana is translated to Titan's blood, also known as lyrium. Vallaslin was not originally made by the blood of the elves like the Dalish claim, but was made by lyrium and processed similarly to what was done on Fenris. This means that lyrium is the source of the Pantheon's shared blood connection to their slaves, making them nearly impossible to kill unless disrupted of their effective immortality process.
One does not lightly kill a god, Inquisitor, even in legend.
Spirit connection. Spiritual connection is another factor that can prolong a mortal's life. The connection between a spirit and its host could potentially process the ability of effective immortality. The best example of this method was shown with Zathrian in Dragon Age Origins. Zathrian's tale began when his children were captured by a group of humans. They tortured and murdered his son, then abused his daughter, and left her for dead in the forest. The Dalish rescued her, but when she found out she was pregnant, she ended her life in shame. Mad with grief and hate, and wanting to exact revenge for what the humans did to his children, Zathrian summoned the spirit of the forest and bound it to the body of a wolf, creating the monster known as Witherfang. Through using the manipulation of life and blood, this prolonged his mortal age to 3 centuries, including the spirit's curse upon the forest. This proved that one's years can be extended by the lashing of a soul to a feyed spirit. However, the hero Ferelden proved that Zathrian can be killed by any natural means, which assumes that his life was prolonged by the spirit and blood magic, but certainly not effectively immortal. Before the Veil's creation, spirits had a natural presence in Thedas. With the Veil's creation, spirits have found it harder to interact with the waking world, and many spirits who pass through the Fate's curtain are naturally drawn by powerful emotions, powers, and even mages. In spite of this, spirits have a natural tendency to be immortal, because there's nothing to deteriorate them from their sole purpose unless they are denied. If denied, these spirits either wither away or they are turned against their original purpose and become a demon. Solas told the Inquisitor that spirits can technically be reborn, however, never remember their past selves. And early human tribes like the Avar believed that spirits could be reborn. The souls of a few Avar, favored by fate, migrate onto death to inhabit a new body destined for them, so they may return and perform great deeds for the good of their hold. The main point I'm exploring is that spirits are immortal, and their vessel they intact to are also immortal. While it is technically effectively immortal for the spirit, their vessel would cease to exist and not pass on as a spirit would, proving that this form is not actually effective immortality. To finalize, I feel like I need to explain more on Dragon Age's definition of immortality. In a general sense, immortality means you can never die. However, in Dragon Age, people who have been defined as immortal can die by natural means, but their body doesn't decay with age.
We were immortal. It was not the arrival of humans that caused us to begin aging. It was me. The veil took everything from the elves.
Further expanding on this, Solas explained that his people were naturally immortal in the time of Arlathan. They never aged. However, since the veil's creation, this natural gift was gone and the elves began to age. So this means that Solas' statement was not entirely true. The ancient elves were not immortal, but ageless mortals who switched their bodies out to extend their lives, which effectively made them immortal. Despite that, this gift was only given to the select few who ruled the Elven Empire Arlathan. In this post-Veil world, the many uses of effective immortality have not been limited with the Veil's creation, as proven by Corypheus and even Mythal. What has been limited by the Veil's creation has been how spirits interact with the living world. One of the most prominent ways mortals have become ageless post-Veil has been through lashing a soul to a Fade spirit, which corrupts the spirit's purpose and is in no way natural. So while mortal beings of Thedas today age with each passing hour, the use of body switching is more prevalent in this fleeting world that's threatened to come to an end.
We stand upon the precipice of change. The world fears the inevitable plummet into the abyss. Watch for that moment, and when it comes, do not hesitate to leap. It is only when you fall that you learn whether you can fly.